And in the house tonight, I've got Dave Parke expanding my
What,
thing that I'm
what?
doing now with interviews. Yeah, man, it's good to have you here. I appreciate you taking the time to stop and shoot the shit a little bit. Thank you for
No,
stopping in.
it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We want to talk about movies. We want to talk about, comic books or this or that. And this, but, I think the reason we talk about those things, I started this in the first place, is because I just like talking to people.
Hmm.
So the opportunity to do that, and maybe sometimes, to invite someone I've never met before on, because, hey, it's my channel and I can do that.
That's right.
If they say yes. So I'm like, yeah, what the fuck? So, I just went out on a limb and I'm like, hey, you want to do it? And you're like, yeah. So I was like, yeah, that works. That works. So,
Yeah.
as I was describing in the bio, you are and forgive me if I, get all the terminology incorrect. You are a former Army Ranger and a
Mhm.
military contractor, if I've got that correct,
Mhm.
and a co-host of the Team House podcast,
Mhm.
which I subscribe to and I'm a fan of. And I was just showing you some other stuff that was connected to. We'll get to that in a minute, which I thought was cool. I'm like, okay. So you have how long has the channel been active? The Team House. How long have you guys been at it?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. We're getting ready for coming up on our 300th episode. About 3 or 4 years, I guess.
Well, congratulations.
Ah,
Okay.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You do it because you love it, and so that makes it that doesn't make it any work at all.
Yeah.
So congratulations, 300 episodes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you, along with your co-host and your friend Jack Murphy,
Mhm.
interview primarily former special operations people, all the way from the Vietnam era. I've seen episodes from Desert Storm. All the way up till today. Sometimes it's foreign special operations,
Mhm.
men and women, because women are in there too. And so you guys will just sit down and drink whiskey, which is always cool too, and just sit there and talk for like 2 or 3 hours. I assume you guys are Ubering home or something like that, because I'm just like, that's a big fucking bottle, and then somebody else has got a different bottle of whiskey, and then the cigars start breaking out, and I'm like, okay, nobody drive. Um, but again, just the opportunity to, have dialogue.
Mhm.
This is what the internet is supposed to be. That's kind of the way that I look at it. So, yeah, thank you again for taking the time.
No, it's
Um,
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
yeah, I have this annoying habit of like monologuing for like 3 minutes
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
first start out.
I mean, you're a hero. That's what they do. Heroes monologue.
I'll have to remember that one. I'll put that in the byline of the channel from now on. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Did you hate math, spelling? What was it? What was life like for a young Dave Parke?
I grew up in Wichita, Kansas,
Okay.
which is a city about, I don't know, about 300,000 people, I suppose. So, you know, it's not some big you know, metropolitan area, but we had a couple malls back when malls were a thing.
Sure.
Um, I, um, I love school. I wasn't necessarily great, but I loved it. I mean, I used to love to read. Um, I think my first sort of like fantasy book was probably Three Hearts and Three Lions by Paul
Okay.
Anderson.
Okay.
Uh, and then, I read all the like the Andre Norton books. Like, I was just very much into it. I found in a used bookstore, I found a copy of Chainmail when I was in the sixth grade and thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And then went went to the hobby shop and found out that that there was actually Dungeons and Dragons, and So in the 6th grade, I started my D&D career, as it were, and
Okay.
or
Okay.
my role playing game, and I collected comics, and the 80s, 70s and 80s were the height. I feel like of the modern comic era. I mean, kind of the end of the silver and the beginning of the modern, or the end of the copper or bronze, whatever it is, and whatever. But yeah, so I mean, I still have a lot of those old comics, and and then with role playing games, you find your crew, and we got into Champions and Card Duel, or was it Card Duels, Car Wars? I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, I was a big like, I mean, I was an athlete too, and like in high school and junior high, but I was a big nerd.
Okay.
I love nerd stuff.
Those things didn't necessarily. I grew up in. Graduated in '87. Graduated high school '87. So that's
Okay,
how far I go
I did
back.
in '88, so
Okay, okay, so
yeah,
yeah, we're in the same ballpark in that sense. Those things didn't necessarily mesh where I grew up. You were either one or the other. Those like athletes and nerds didn't. If they did, maybe they kept it to themselves. That kind of thing. What was your? I mean, what was your experience? Did like your athlete, your jock friends give you shit, or were they were they like, hey, join, sign me up. Where do I do this? That kind of thing, or
no,
just they didn't care.
no, I never experienced that. I never, um, like, I mean, maybe it was because I wasn't on the football team. Like, my mom wouldn't let me play football because all the stuff about Peyton was coming out, and she
Okay,
was worried I was
CTE.
gonna. Yeah, I mean, of course, it doesn't matter because then I went into the military and everything and had the same results. But so I was a gymnast and a wrestler
Okay.
and a track a sprinter, and I never like, I don't know. I guess that there are cliques in high school, but I never found myself restricted to like one clique. I'd go to the chess club and play, and then
Okay.
go to the wrestling mat. As captain of the wrestling team. Like, I didn't really care. Nobody ever gave me shit about it. I don't know.
I click jumped because I was part of like the nerd slash degenerate crowd growing up in high school, and then I click jumped later, like my junior senior year into football, and like no one could stop me, but I wasn't part of the crowd necessarily, for that group. I mean, I played and that was fine. My thing actually, junior senior year, I got in the golf team. So you just a great sense of adventure on the golf team. But at 55, nobody else was still wrestling or playing football, I would assume. But I could still go out there every once in a while and hit a few. I'm probably not any better than I was back, back when Bush the first was president. But it's still fun, and you can get out there and get some fresh air, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I never got into the D&D thing. Lots of my friends did. Lots of my friends did. My thing was like horror movies, that kind of stuff. I was also involved in martial arts, that kind of thing. So if there were athletics, it was probably more like outside of the school. But yeah, I didn't really care for. I think once I started realizing that at least for probably what I had planned, a lot of the classes I was taking, like I wasn't a great student because I'm like I'm never going like I've never talked about a parallelogram outside since like 1986. What do you mean a quadrilateral? Like leave me alone. Like I'm never going to have to do any of this stuff. And as a result, I became like an English major. So books, the love of books, yeah, that absolutely. Starting off with the old, the Hobbit. I remember reading that, although I
Yeah.
didn't get into Lord of the Rings until much later. The Pierce Anthony stuff. Stephen King. Stephen King was like a huge thing. I was like, what is, I didn't know that people could write about these types of things.
Yeah.
like, transitioning from some kid's story all of a sudden to a car, coming trying to kill you. It's great, and it's great in a book. In a movie, it's stupid. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
cars. That's a dumb movie. But that was sort of my linkage to the nerd thing. But so you get out of high school, and is it an automatic transition into the military, or
No,
did you take your time? Was it
I so I was living on my own my last year of high school roughly, and and like I said, I loved high school. I was student body president. I
you
was
really
involved in
okay?
sports.
Okay.
Like I loved it. I wasn't, and believe it or not, I wasn't like a really popular guy in the sense of uh, like I beat the popular kids when I won student body president. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I had a ton of friends. I was popular in that way, but I didn't have parties at my house. I didn't have a nice car. I didn't, we were very, very middle class. Um, but,
Sure.
but so when high school ended, I just kind of felt lost. And also all of my friends had gotten their college acceptance letters, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I missed all the application process. Like I remember getting all the mail because I was in the honor society and and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
remember getting all the mail, but I never did anything with it. And neither of my parents hadn't gone to college, so nor had my step parents and so it just kind of went by. And so all my friends are going off to college. I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just packed up my car and I moved to California. And I
Oh,
kind
no
of like,
shit. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And I just, lived in my car for a little while. Like I just lived there for about a year, um, doing sales, doing different stuff until I just got bored. And the military had always been in the back of my mind because like the A-Team was one of my favorite TV shows, and GI Joe.
Okay.
Like
Sure.
there's this image that this presented about the military, and and so I decided that I wanted to do whatever was hardest. But I didn't know if I would like it. So after about a year of living in California, I went into a Marine recruiter
Okay.
and joined the Marine Reserves.
Okay.
And so I spent a year in the Marine Reserves, and then Desert Shield started, and I wasn't going to deploy as a reservist. So I tried to go active Marines, and they wouldn't take me because I was prior service. So then I went to the Navy to be a corpsman
Okay.
with them. And
Okay.
then I did, I just kind of through happenstance, I never got to the Marine Corps through the Navy because the FMF, the Fleet Marine Force, was full. So I went to dive school and I became a dive med tech, did 4 years in the Navy, got out, did like 3 years in the Guard. Um,
Well, can I stop you for a second?
yeah,
So, I mean, a corpsman, that's not a simple thing, right? I mean, that's pretty detailed training. I mean,
it's basically they corpsmen can get and military medics in general, because a corpsman, for people who don't know, is a military medic. It's the
right.
base level designation for a medic, and you really don't get a whole lot of advanced training when you do those courses, either in the Army, I assume, or in the Navy. But what you do have is the opportunity for a lot of training, a lot of OJT. You have a lot of doctors who will sit down with you and teach you how to throw stitches, throw sutures, or remove a fingernail or a toenail, or do the different types of things. Um, and then there are a lot of advanced schools. So I would say that the base level of it's not super advanced. It's maybe like it's a lot of understanding nursing care. It's a lot of like EMT basic level stuff,
Okay.
and it might have changed. Like we're talking about 1990,
Okay.
and the things that I used to know as a medic and as somebody who had been through a lot of it, of the advanced classes like advanced trauma life support at the time, what we thought we knew back then is completely different now.
Okay. It's amazing how fast things have changed from
Yeah,
1990, isn't it?
yeah,
It's like a completely different world. And even if you look at like the late 90s and you look at the old block phones that we thought were like the peak of technology, you had no idea how fast. I think in many ways we're still catching up.
yeah.
We don't know what to make of all this technology and all this new knowledge. I don't know that if we as people are ready to process it all in an appropriate way, in a mature way.
Well,
Um,
I think, and I think one of the challenges is it's moving faster than we can actually, I think, than we can keep up. And when I say it's moving faster, it's always it's also like
yeah,
branching out.
yeah,
So, I think there will come a time, people are already specialized, but I think there will come a time when people are, when all you can do is specialize because there's just too much and knowledge that moves too quickly.
yeah. Yeah, I have a friend. He's like going to law school for like AI law, and I'm like, how do you legislate that? How I wouldn't even begin to understand how that would work. I'm not the dumbest person in the world, but I mean, he tells me that, and I'm just like, yeah, where to start? Where to start?
Yeah.
So I mean, so from there, Navy diver.
Yeah. Hard hat diver, dive med
Okay.
tech.
So is that like I mean I sound like a is that like the Carl Brashier movie, like what he was,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cuz that's
Uh,
he's that's a hell of a story. His story. I mean, and
yeah.
that not
I'm
a
sure you mean,
not a
yeah.
simple job.
Yeah, it's a tough job. It's a great job. It's a fun job. It's a thankless job. Uh, it's a blue collar job. So of course, blue collar.
Dave, are you there?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know if my internet's getting a little testy or not. I don't know what's
Uh-oh.
going
No, we're okay. It was just
on. Okay.
for a second it paused there. Hold on a second. Oh, well, hold on. We'll come back to that in a minute. So, you are trying to get to Iraq for
It was
desert.
over. Iraq ended. The Desert Shield ended while I was still in Navy boot camp,
Okay.
or
Okay.
corps school. Maybe it ended when I was in corps school. I can't remember, but it was over quickly.
Yes, I remember it did seem to be rather brief
Yeah,
because, people were saying that we were gearing up for the next Vietnam. And I guess, I really wasn't paying that much attention to what the media was like. And, I kind of took it seriously because it is a serious thing. But then it was over in like,
yeah,
like the blink of an eye. I'm like, well, that was quick. Okay.
yeah.
So what happens? What happens after that?
So I do my time in the Navy, and then I get out, join the Guard for a while. Initially the Air National Guard, but then the Army National Guard for like 3 years. And then I went back on active duty. I joined the Army
Okay.
for active duty.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're enjoying the military. I mean, the
I love the
military
military.
experience, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cause you're young, you've, tons of testosterone. It probably is a great, you know, uh, avenue or, a great pathway, for that kind of thing. A
I
young
mean,
man.
yeah, and there are all kinds of training opportunities. There are cool jobs. And look, even if you're somebody who gets in and doesn't do one of the quote unquote cool job, let's say you become, a mechanic or a cook, which are two incredibly hard and thankless jobs. there are all kinds of training opportunities for those folks too. You know, like I was always, you know, drawn to like challenge myself, prove myself, whatever. Part of it, I think, was growing up on a heavy diet of fantasy literature and you know, wanting to be a character that I rolled, you know. But I would never take anything away from anybody who served in personnel or, you know, served in another capacity, because those jobs are hard. You're thankless. And the only time that they hear anything is when something goes wrong. You know,
Right.
like they don't get thanked for when everybody's vehicles are able to roll out the gate for a combat op. You know,
Right.
so yeah. So I went into the Army, became an Army Ranger, and did that. It was on the line, which is, for people who might not know, is part of the line platoon. It's the infantry. It's what you think of it as, the infantry, and then went to the sniper section after that.
Okay. Okay. Now, at this point, are we in the point world? No, we're still not in the.
Nope.
Okay. We're still
I
in.
left. I left active duty. I left the Army. Well, I left active duty in maybe March of 2000, some April 2000, somewhere around there. I'm not sure. But before I left, I had taken my SATs, because I never took my SATs. I was 30 at this point in time. I took my SATs. I applied to some colleges. I applied to LAPD, and
Okay.
and then I joined a Special Forces Guard unit. I joined their military intelligence section to become I wanted to learn Arabic, so I figured the way to do that was to have the military send me to school. So I joined a unit, or an element of a Special Forces unit. It's not Special Forces, like it's not the long time. I never went to SFAS, but it's their, what we call, signal intelligence guys, who intercept and listen and triangulate and do all that stuff. So I joined a guard unit, and they slotted me with Defense Language Institute. So I was off active duty for about a month or 2 months. I drove from Washington State down to California to Monterey, where the school is, dropped my stuff off in storage, drove out to West Virginia, did a drill, drove back to California, and started 15 months of Arabic training.
Wow. Okay. Difficult, easy language to learn? Do you have an aptitude for languages? Because that matters.
I do. I think I do have an aptitude for languages.
Okay. Is there like a 1 through 5 difficulty scale?
I think it's a 1 through 4, if I remember right. I think it's 1 through 4. In Arabic and Chinese, and I think Russian, maybe Korean. I'm not sure, but actually Korean might be a 3. I can't remember. But Arabic is like a Cat 4 language. It was difficult until it wasn't. I was actually one of the slower. It took me a little bit longer, like a month or 2, to kind of grab on. But once like something clicked in my head, then it's difficult. But when you're doing it every day for 8 hours a day, like you can do anything.
Immersion.
Little children speak Arabic, so it's right.
Sure.
So I mean, that's, I think, one of the ways to look at any language is you can learn it because kids speak it. It's just a matter of setting the right, immersing yourself and setting the right conditions.
But kids. I mean, I was an international teacher for a little over a decade, and so I did some traveling and, taught in some different countries over in South Asia and, those sorts of places. And, kids' minds, they're a little more malleable, so,
Yeah.
they're flexible, like they just, like this, and so I would go to these other places and, try to pick up like Bahasa Indonesia. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like in my 40s. I'm like, maybe everybody's English is just going to get better. Maybe that'll be my focus.
Yeah.
I'll just improve it. You want me to learn Hindi? Well, I'm going to sit here and talk to you, and I think you're great. And secretly working on your English, and paying this guy to improve his English. So I'm like, okay, it's fine, not a
Yeah.
problem. So I personally, I just don't think I have the aptitude. I walk in there. I walked in, on several occasions, very enthusiastically, travel to Japan. I have friends in Japan, and so now it's just, your English is just going to be up, within 3 weeks. I'm here for 3 weeks, no problem. Your English is going to be through the roof by the time I leave this place. So
Yeah.
I'm glad someone's able to pick it up because it wasn't me. It wasn't me. That's just, those were the facts of, facts for me. So what happens after languages?
So I graduated Defense Languages 2 about a month after, or maybe the same month. I can't remember. October, November, I think or September, October, November of 2001. So 9/11 happened while I was there. And then I was not interested in working for LAPD or not interested in going to college, and tried to, unfortunately, because after language school, I still had to go through the signals intelligence portion of my training in Texas. So my guard unit mobilized before I got to it, which really upset me quite a bit. And then I went there because they were still in the States. I went there. They tried to get me individually mobilized. When they mobilize guard units, they do it like a whole unit. And trying to get the state to mobilize me as an individual, just, I don't know. We just couldn't do it. I had a lot of people helping me, and we just couldn't pull it off. So I went to work as an interpreter for a while. And, as like support for different intelligence activities, and then picked up a contract under the director of national intelligence. They oversee like 15 or 17 organizations. Okay. And so I picked up a contract there, and then spent the next 6 years doing that.
Okay. That I seem to recall that was that came in the post 9/11 world, wasn't it? Or was that Director of National Intelligence, or was that DHS? Am I confusing them?
Yeah. I think the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, I think it was a relatively new thing.
I seem to recall that.
Meant to correct for the failures of the intelligence stovepiping that happened during 9/11.
Right.
But and DHS was also relatively new. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens after those 6 years?
So after those 6 years, I left. I that was 2010, and
That's 20 years.
Yeah.
That's 20 years, man. I mean, you talked about 20 years in about 15 minutes. Yeah. That's a lot of time. That's a lifetime.
So I was a little, 2010. I'd been deploying a lot, and And I think part of it was I was a little burnt out, and part of it was I guess losing the ability to connect with regular people. Um, you know, it's because if they weren't talking about war or counterterrorism or or something like that, like I wasn't following anything that
Outside
was
of
really
that.
going on in the States. I wasn't. Um, yeah, so 2010, I got out. I left, moved to New York, and started a new life. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
So, not to summarize, but so you became a YouTuber.
yeah. So that
How did
happened.
that? How did?
That happened much further down the road. So
Okay.
it was. So I got out in 2010. I met Jack Murphy maybe around 2011, 2012 time frame at a New York Ranger sort of meetup.
Okay.
We became buddies, and um, stayed in touch or whatnot. Um, and then around like I did a bunch of stuff in New York. I actually had like a hypnosis business for a while. Um, I did a lot of improv. I was heavy into improv for like
No kidding. Okay.
4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and then did executive protection, which is just the worst thing in the world.
Hmm.
And then around maybe 2018, I think it was, Jack and I were hanging out, and he told me that his daughter had played Dungeons and Dragons at school,
Okay.
and that she really liked it.
Hmm.
So he had started playing D&D with her, and I was like,
Okay.
I love D&D.
That's a good day.
And he goes,
Okay.
well, have you heard of Critical Role? And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of Critical Role. Because I want to start something like that. So that's what we did. He used a book advance that he got to buy, all the equipment, the old studio that you talk about. The table, if you ever go back, if you look at it, it was a triangular table. It was,
Okay.
and there was a flat screen TV in it for
See the
graphics.
get.
For
Oh,
yeah,
okay. 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 Okay.
for maps, for digital maps.
Hmm.
And so we did like 3 episodes of this show called Mandatory Fun, of us playing D&D with some people.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out for a number of reasons. Um, uh, but he still had still had the studio, still had the equipment. And then I think he went down there to like have a talk with a friend one time, like online. And then he goes, hey, do you want to? And I was actually crashing on his couch at the time. And he was like, hey, do you want to, go down to the studio and do something? And I'm like, do what? Like nobody wants to hear me run my mouth. And he goes, I don't know. We'll just go in and talk about some new stuff. So for the first, I don't know, couple months, 2 or 3 months, whatever it was, that was our show. Jack and I just sitting there talking about, you know, Taylor Swift or pirates, um,
Okay.
or whatever, and getting hammered.
So it's
And
like a Seinfeld YouTube. It's like a show about nothing. We're just talking about
it was
shooting the
about
shit.
nothing. About nothing.
Okay.
We would go in and like each of us would have a couple news stories from the week that we want to talk about, and
Okay.
there was no theme, there was nothing. And then we started inviting friends in. We started inviting people because Jack is also a former Ranger and former Special Forces. So we started inviting like people in who we knew, and they were people from our old communities or whatnot. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, that's our show.
Yeah.
And that's what it's been ever since.
I guess, if you keep at it, you're in a position to make changes and course corrections. And, as long as you're doing the thing you love, sometimes, a channel can stumble into, like, this is the thing that works.
I really think the thing is consistency.
Hmm.
When I still remember getting excited, 4 or 5 months in, when 100 people watched,
Oh,
not live, but after a few days, 100 people watched it. I was like, holy
yeah,
shit, 100 people.
yeah.
And the thing is consistency. I think a lot of people who try to start pods don't have consistency.
Hmm.
And then a lot of people who have pods, I think they try to go too broad sometimes, and there are people who can get away with that. Like somebody like Joe Rogan can get away with just being a talk show,
Right.
because he's a personality, and and whatnot. I think I think until you get to that point, though, people want to know what they're checking in for, and so like having like some sort of consistency really helps,
Hmm.
because we have gone, and our consistency is actually not our consistency, but our focus is actually quite broad. If we were to narrow it down, we would probably have a bigger audience if we just interviewed special operations folks, um, with the sort of no shit there I was knee deep in hand grenade stories. Those interviews tend to get larger numbers of viewers, but we do want to have an analyst on, or an author who wrote a history book about special operations or about an area. We sort of cover the whole the NatSec umbrella, I guess. Um, so like we can go through and see which shows really perform.
Right.
And if we ever decided not to be true to our vision, which is to capture history on a personal level, and just be like, well, we're just going to do the
Blood and guts kind of thing. Yeah.
the cool guy stuff. Um, the channel would be bigger, but it wouldn't be what we set out to do.
Okay. And just the same, I mean, you guys have had some tremendous guests.
We've been very blessed. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I want to ask you, well, I'm tempted to ask you who your least favorite is, but I don't want you to put the X on anyone. But who have been some of your favorite, who have been some of your favorite guests to have on, or who have been some of the ones you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that, this person is like going to come on my show to talk to me.
I mean, we had Scotty Miller on, former acting Secretary of Defense. We've had, Jack Devine, a CIA legend. Like we've had, that's really hard for me to say. Because one, my memory is really bad because of all my TBIs, but two, we've had so many amazing people who have decided to share with us, and it's not always. We've had some really big names on, and I'm always grateful for those people. And we've had people come on who, when we approach them, they're like, well, I can't compare to the people you've had on. It's like, it's not a comparison. If you have a story that's interesting or that will help people learn or whatever, we want to have you on. And, we've had on people who have had 2 silver stars, 2 Valor Awards. We had on Marty Peterson, who was the first female CIA case officer to work the Soviet Union. And she got arrested by the KGB and it was in the papers. It's like we've had on some tremendous people, but we've also had on people who are tremendous, whose names, whose stories may not reverberate throughout history.
Right.
Their stories are very personal, but they're every bit as amazing.
I've always appreciated you've had Vietnam vets on there.
Yeah.
Some of the Mac v. SOG guys, all the way up to like Pete Blaber. You
Yeah.
got Pete Blaber on. I couldn't. Yeah, I mean, I remember reading Naylor's book, um, "A Good Day to Die." I can't remember the entire title. It's been a long time since I read it. It sits on my bookshelf in the other room though, and I just you're reading this tremendous story. I was like, this can't be real. It's like something out of a. It really is something like out of a movie. Like this is
Yeah.
impossible. Like this can't. There's so many things happening in that story with so many people. It's like a superhero movie and super villains, and you're just like, holy, like this is amazing. So I mean, he was on there. I remember your episode, and if I remember, I apologize if I get her name incorrect. Sam Wan.
Yeah.
Sam Wan was, and she just had like a tremendous story to tell.
Yeah.
Like somebody you never hear about. You're not going to see her on any of the news channels. As an analyst, for CNN or Newsmax or whoever you watch. But she had a hell of a story.
Yeah.
So the fact that
Sam's an amazing person. Yeah.
Just really, really cool. Let me ask this. You guys, and I can only tell, like, you guys, you and Jack, you get on there and you conduct, like, really great, almost like backyard style interviews. It's, like you're just sitting there at a barbecue, you're just sitting in your chairs, with the umbrella and, you got a couple of drinks. And, that's kind of the style, which is great. I think that works best. That sort of loose and informal, open discussion. One statement leads to the next question. It's not all pre-prepared and stiff, that kind of thing. But I just completely lost my train of thought. I just completely lost my train of thought on the next thing. I mean, but that's it. To watch you and Jack, I mean, you're very much, working together in that way. But to see your personalities, or by glimpse of your personalities online, you seem very different. Is that do you have differences that you just see things differently and that's fine? Or,
yeah,
I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, even our interview styles are very different. And, thank goodness, Jack is very much, he's very organized. He is a journalist. He thinks like a journalist. He is in a good way. I mean, I'll talk a lot of shit about journalists in general, but I mean this in a good way. And he's very conscientious of the time. Where me, I ramble and I ramble. Somebody will say something that piques my interest, and it's not even an important part of the story, but I will want to go into, I've gone into hyperbarics, or died medicine, or trauma care.
Good for you.
I nerd out or geek out on, very specific things sometimes. And so, yeah, I mean, Jack and I are grown men. We have different opinions about different things. And that doesn't, I think we allow that one, we don't get political on our show. Sometimes our guests do, and we allow them to say what they're going to say, and then we try to bring it back to the thing, is because this information we want everybody to have, and we don't want to appeal to one demographic or another, to one political party or another. We don't want, I'm a firm, I mean, and politically Jack and I are a bit different, but I'm a firm opinion that you don't have to agree with people about stuff to be friends with.
Yeah.
And things used to be more that way before social media.
Yeah. Everybody found, social media is, like I said, these sorts of things, your discussions on the Team House, the things that the internet are supposed to be. Unfortunately, that's probably not what the majority of it is used for.
No.
Um, and so that's like we started saying earlier. It's gotten ahead of us. It's gotten ahead of us, and we don't seem, by and large, mature enough to handle where it's taking us. It's just we've descended into tribalism. Um, Now, I mean, is it just me, or is it? I mean, are we? I mean, it seems like we're in a pretty bad place right now. I mean, I don't. Not this conversation, but I mean, just in terms of the country and the world, the things that you see, you read, and you try to approach them with a bit of detachment. To figure out what's legitimate and what's not, and what's tribalism and what's not, and what's unreasonable, and you know what should be reasonable, which is that people having differences of opinion can still live together or coexist. I know that's almost become like a dirty word in certain circles. um I remember I left America in 2010. I was living in I'm still in New Jersey, but I was down at the Jersey Shore, and I had this weird summer job. And the last summer that I was there, I met this embassy family that had a beach house down at the Jersey Shore, and they were there for the summer. And they were like, "You ought to come back with us." And I hated the job that I had at the time, which was working at like an inner city high school. And I was like, "Sure, no problem, let's go." And I just packed up my apartment. I was dating this woman. We ended up breaking up. I said, "Give me 6 months, and I'll see about sending for you." Obviously, that didn't work out, and I just left, and I didn't come back for a decade. And when I came back, it was during the pandemic, and there was a universal difference between, let's see, August. That's about right. Yeah, August of 2010 and August of 2020. I didn't know what the hell had happened. The country was like on fire. There were riots every night. Everybody hated everybody. I remember meeting in 2016. I met this influx of new teachers, these young girls, fresh out of college, and they seemed like, bright, pretty girls. 20 somethings, and they're traveling overseas, and they got this great opportunity and this great experience. And I had been on the road for about 6 years at that point, so you try to meet new people and show them the ropes. And, we do this over here, first time in this country, here's where this is over here. Hey, we're going to go see this movie. Let's go do this. And they appear perfectly normal. And then all of a sudden they would just flip with this, like woke talk. And I'm like, what's the patriarchy? I don't know what that means. And the election happens, and they're sobbing and tears. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because I'm not paying attention to what's going on back in America. I'm like 8,000 miles away, like 10,000 miles away. And so, by the time I came back, everything had just flipped. And I've been back now for August 1st, 2024, it'll be 4 years. And it just seems to be going like, you try to keep that level of detachment, but I'm like, no, this is bad. This is like, it seems like, in the big picture, there seems to be very little good news nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think that, I know that, you talk a lot about movies, and you talk, a lot about, the things that you enjoy. And it's the same for me in the sense of, the movies that we love. There have been strong female leads in movies for a very long time.
Sure.
And there was never any backlash to Sarah Connor being strong, to Ripley being strong. But now, now people are sort of like reinventing history. That if even something as modern as Black Widow, crazy great reviews, right? But somehow, this portion of a society that finds fault with everything. And look, right now right now it's the left, but the right with the Christian majority, like the right used to be there too. Like I remember the D&D panic, in the 80s when, because I play Dungeons and Dragons and listen to Kiss, that,
Yeah.
that I was a Satan worshiper.
Yes.
So
Satanic Panic. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And D&D was thrown into that. I mean,
Okay.
there was a movie called Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks, where he was somebody who got lost in the role playing world and lost his mind. Like, so I don't. I will say that right now, like a lot of this that we see is on the left, this puritanical sort of type of thing, but it's only swung there from the right, right? I mean, it's only swung there from the parents, going to Congress over explicit music lyrics and things like that. So, I think what's challenging about it now is the weaponization of as things that people that almost all people acknowledge as bad, like racism and misogyny and these things. That now, if you don't, if Captain Marvel, the movie, doesn't do well because it's not a good movie, and Black Widow does well because it's a great movie, the people who don't like Captain Marvel are still incels and misogynists and and everything like that. Um, it's it, but these people, these creators, these people will not, they won't take a breath to just say, look, we made a crappy product, you know. I've seen it. I also think that I also think that I think that there are two types of racism. I think that there is that outward, that vocal racism that we see on the alt right.
Okay.
That people have always been aware of.
Sure.
And I
You
think
mean
the
like
right,
the Klan or something like
yeah,
that?
exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
like the Klan,
The neo Nazis. Yeah, that sort of thing.
exactly.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think the right has generally done a pretty good job at like ignoring, disavowing, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I think that what people don't get though is that there's a racism on the far left too, and it's far more insidious because it flies under the radar of sort of white man's burden. It flies under the radar of other people, particularly like black people, are not as capable, or they're not as smart, or they're not as whatever. So let's dumb down the education for them. Let's do this, and I feel that that's coming out, like in Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. There was just like Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. They've rewritten everything so that nothing, so that there aren't like racial traits and it used to be fun to try to metagame. Should I be a wood elf or a halfling if I want this dexterity bonus? Or do I want to be a half orc or whatever? But somehow, about a year ago, the left starts saying, and again, I really want to differentiate between conservatives and liberals, who to me are just people who, conservatives value individual sovereignty over the good of the public, or
Yeah.
the good of the many.
Yeah.
And it can be just a little bit. It's not necessarily we want to see kids starving in the street. It's just
Right.
that individual sovereignty and liberty is here and the good of the many is here. And liberals see the good of the many are here and individual sovereignty is here. Now it can stretch,
Yeah.
right? But to me, that's how I sort of, and we need both of those guiding factors in our community so that we don't go
Yes, we
off the
do.
rails in either direction. But again, we have, the alt-right and a bunch of accelerationists and, sort of the moral majority who want to legislate based on the Bible. Or we have outside of that on the left, we have Marxists, maybe anarchists. I don't know where they fall, Marxists, and then people who project their own misogyny and their own racism, and they do it in a way as to not be called out for it. So, like a year ago or so, this big argument came up that orcs are coded as black people. Did you hear about that?
I did. You know the genius of it, the evil genius of it is that I think within the black community, and I'm someone who's half black. I was raised in the quote unquote black community, which it's a whole other story. Is that it especially in light of the George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, they managed to. It was a driving wedge in society. It was a driving wedge in society, and they managed to ignite smoldering resentments and
Yeah,
turn them into a huge bonfire.
yeah,
That I came back into in August of 2024. I mean, it was deliberate. It was successful, and we still haven't come back from it.
no,
It's still the whole issue of race now, where a police officer can't pull over somebody without having a camera in their face and being screamed at about all these different things. The breakdown has been I think it's been systemic, and it's been successful, and I'm not exactly sure how to pull back, how we're going to pull back from this.
I think so. A lot of it obviously is coming from social media. A lot of it, but BLM, for instance, the leaders were avowed Marxists. Like the Chinese were funding a lot of that. It benefits them, and like what I was saying about the orcs being coded black. It's like I played D&D since the 6th grade. I'm 54 years old. Nobody at any table that I've ever sat with that has never come. Nobody ever even imagined that, right? Nobody.
Right?
And all of a sudden, I'm reading this. I'm like, this is the projection that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is the production. If you look at this fantasy character and are projecting that, or seeing that, maybe you should do some soul searching. I mean, we grew up in the same time frame. I honestly look. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't know that racists existed, but I honestly thought, with Run DMC and Aerosmith, Walk This Way, and like I honestly, for most of my life, believed we lived in a post-racial world, in the sense of you're always going to have people of every race who don't like people of another race, right?
Yeah.
But we're at a point now where when liberals are talking about segregating classes and things like this, I'm like, what is going on here? How are we going?
I mean, look, I was someone who was pretty left of center my entire life. It's just like I don't have the I don't necessarily have the personality traits for, traditional Reaganite conservatism. That just
Yeah,
wasn't me. I remember Reagan. I remember George, H.W. Bush. It seemed kind of stuffy. That
yeah,
wasn't, it seems sort of exclusive. Like that's, your old, remember that term, country club Republican?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm not in that club. I'm just
yeah.
not in that club. Okay, so this guy over here seems a little more amenable, flexible, whatever you want to call it. The only reason and I couldn't believe it, somehow in the last presidential election, there I was voting GOP, but it's not the same. Well, it's not the same GOP, but it's certainly not the same Democratic Party.
It's
It's
not.
not the same.
Like if you look at the 70s, and and obviously I wasn't a big part of the 70s. I was growing up. I was born in 70. Um, you
Yeah,
know, but if you look at like the Flower Children,
sure.
right? Where did those live? Where did those like hippies go? They all grew up to be like kind of shitty conservatives, like warmongers in a way.
Yeah.
And I know
Did they become the neocons?
I think a lot of them did. I mean, I think a lot of them did. I mean, some of them held true to like who they were, but I think
Right.
a lot of them did. And it's like that's the left the left that doesn't trust the government and says stick it to the man. Like that's the left that I like. And it's like politics is so multi-ordinal now, right? And it's tough to say if you're a conservative or a liberal because we all vote on a couple of issues. I mean, I would love to see some sort of public health care option, but I also use the VA, and it's really fucked up. And it's like, get the VA right, serve 1% of the population first successfully, and then I'll believe that you can do it with everybody else.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I go ahead.
My lifelong conservative friends are very vehemently opposed to public, free healthcare. But I had an experience about 20 years ago and many pounds ago where I used to skateboard, and I broke my leg. And I had a job. I was working for a small business. This is before I went overseas. This is a long time ago. And I broke it really bad, and I needed a plate to put in my leg. And I went in on a Wednesday night. But because I was in the probationary period of this job, I didn't have benefits yet. So I went in Wednesday night to reset my leg. They're like, well, we're going to have to put a plate in there. We'll do it on Thursday. Thursday came around, a lot of emergencies in the ER, whatever. They're like, sorry, we're going to have to do it on Friday. They did it on Friday. I got out Saturday morning. I got a bill for $35,000. Then I was like, what? Like, did you replace my brain or something with
Yeah,
one of those Elon implants now? I'm like, what exactly did I get for 35,000 except for a leg that hurts like hell right now, getting used to this piece of metal in it. And so when somebody said, hey, we're going to see about healthcare that can help people, you know, I don't think you should force anyone to take it. But if someone you need it. The costs are just so bad. I know the rollout probably wasn't the best, and it's had some other impacts. I don't think it was rolled out in the best possible way. They probably could have done that better. But philosophically, I approve of that idea. So I still hold to that because I remember, all those years ago breaking my leg and getting. I think the job I was working at the time paid like $30,000 a year. So the bill I got for like 3 nights in the hospital was more than I made during the entire calendar year. And I'm like, there's something really wrong here.
yeah,
So I'm not some arch conservative, but at this point, I just take someone who doesn't hate their own country. I never thought I would. That's what's made me vote. That's what's caused me to vote Republican.
yeah,
Like, you're not a crazy person. You don't. You're not. You can tell me who a woman is. And you don't want to watch your whole country collapse, having no idea what that means, because all those girls that lived overseas that lived over there and were spouting that nonsense, they had like where we were living. there was plenty of opportunity to interact with the poor. They had no interest in interacting with the poor. They were at rooftop bars, tea plantations, wineries for the weekend. And I'm just like, you people have no idea what you're talking about. So that's the kind of Republican I've become. Hey, let's not all burn it all down, and let's pull back on the validating people's resentments bullshit. Like anybody who spent 5 seconds in an AA meeting will tell you that like resentments are like the worst possible thing, and like everybody has just become so filled with resentments. I'm just, what the hell is going on here? So, like it or not, that's where we are. At least that's what I see. That's what I see right now is where we are in the country. It's crazy.
No, I agree. I mean, for me, like I care about the Constitution, and and I feel as long as our politicians respect that we can make anything work. But I don't think I don't like politicians in general. I don't think there's an honest politician out there.
None of them are your friend.
No.
It's like the IRS. It's like lawyers, the IRS, and politicians. Like they're absolutely friends to no one.
And at the end of the day, even if the politician is quote on your side and quote, you should really like look at what they're saying and what they're doing, because those are usually two different things.
Hold on a second. We have a few comments here. This is the Joe Rogan show. We've got J.R. Riggs, who has, thanks for stopping by, J.R., and he has two big eyes there. I don't know what that means, but thanks for stopping in, man. We appreciate it. Over on the Twitch side, we've got Dark Sage, 9117. If you want a good speech on technology, Eisenhower gave a speech to the UN once about the dangers of tech and how it can consume our lives if not used carefully. Well, he was ahead of his time on that one. One of my all-time favorite presidents.
I have not heard that speech, but I will make a note to look it up.
Yeah, it's probably something you can dig up on YouTube or something like that. It seems that he was forecasting a lot of this stuff, I don't know how he managed to see these things, or maybe they were just general. I mean, it's really weird. Like, I feel like we're watching everything. I think my biggest concern is that in the worst possible scenario, it falls apart and we're all going to watch it on our phone. It's become this weird. I was having this conversation with a very old friend of mine yesterday in the car, and I'm like, this phone it's become a weird thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got my old friend Fred Weedow. What's happening, Fred? Thanks for stopping in. You finally got into the show. Thank you, ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's the division in a nutshell. Yeah. Definitely not very friendly to one half of the equation there, those networks. And we've got Mario Rivas, who says Dave Parke. Okay.
What?
Do you know Mario?
I'm not. Maybe.
Okay. He said Dave Parke, so I'm like, I'm only repeating it that way because he put an exclamation mark there, and I was an English major, so that's the way I was taught to read it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a strange time. We've got assassination attempts, happening. It looks like, some people say they're not assassination attempts. Friends of mine say they're not assassination attempts.
What did they say they are?
What did someone say? Two assassination attempts, 2 failures, incompetent. Somebody said this the other day, and it was the man is what you defined as one of the old hippies. Like one of those, I think he's one of those guys who remained true to the cause. He's got to be like 70 years old or something.
Yeah.
Like I'm not arguing, which is, that's another conversation too. Do you want to take up the argument? Sometimes you do. Sometimes just let it go. It's not worth my time, raising my blood pressure. But he was like 2 assassination attempts, 2 botches, 2 incompetent. It was like a question mark. 2 incompetent assassins seems unlikely. And I'm like, do you really think that? Like, it's really weird to have this conversation with people that you've known for like a really long time, and then like this part of their personality sort of shows up, and you're like, who are you? You know, it, you know,
Yeah.
I know you're not Pazuzu or anything like that, you know, from The Exorcist, but like, where does this come from? Like, I, this girl I knew from high school, and she would just spout off this stuff, and I'm like, well, what about this? She's like, well, I just choose not to think about that, and I'm like, you were the valedictorian of our high school. Like you're a perfect example, you know, of why, you know, the numbers don't necessarily, you know, mean everything. But mean, you know, as much as, you know, maybe they, you know, were as much credit as they were given to back then. Because I'm just like, yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's you know, it's the same way as people saying that these guys are, you know, these two would-be assassins are conservatives. I mean, the FBI found an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump. Look, every world leader that is not friendly with us, we're talking about North Korea, Russia, Iran, China. I would even say Ukraine, even though they're friendly with us. I think that Zelensky is afraid that if Trump gets in office, that the funding gets cut off. So, but I'm not saying this is on Zelensky. I'm just saying
Right.
that none of them want Trump in office. When Trump killed Soleimani, Iran had to, like, they didn't know what to do, and they don't know how to deal with him. He's unpredictable, and they do not want him in office. Do I think they are behind these attempts? No. I think these attempts. So, you know, it's interesting because we can say without controversy that mentally unwell kids can get radicalized online and do something horrific, right? I think everybody is okay saying that mentally unhealthy kids can get radicalized online and do unhealthy things or do horrific things like school shootings and whatnot. Sure. And there are groups out there, these accelerationist groups that have an online presence, and they don't have any politics. They just want to see everything burned down, and they target these kids that are not well. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why, if we can say that, why it's controversial to say that the 24/7 message that Trump is a threat to democracy, that he is Hitler, that he's an existential threat to America and to democracy. I don't know why it's controversial to say that that kind of talk radicalizes those same unwell people.
Sure.
I don't think that these two assassins, and then there was just a thing about people getting sick at his.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Right, and they think it might be chemical warfare. I don't think that these kids are a CIA plot. I don't think that they're Iranian proxies. I don't think anything. I think they are, and the one guy's not a kid, but he was definitely mentally unhealthy. If you like look at all of his tweets, that I don't know why it's controversial to say that all this talking about Trump being the Antichrist, essentially, isn't going to make those same kids who would do a school shooting, or those same people who would do something horrific, why isn't it going to make them feel or seem as though they need to do that by taking out Trump, they're saving the world?
Yeah. Do you remember that old movie Beckett with Peter O'Toole? Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest?
Yeah.
You know, and he says it to those guys, and then he just walks out of the room, and they all just look at each other like, I guess that's the marching order, and they march right in there, and they, you know, kill Richard Burton, and that's what I keep thinking of, that line from O'Toole. Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome? And you're just, you know, that there's no accountability. You know, there's no narrative that is, well, there is, but you know, you're called a conspiracy theorist if, you know, you make that common sense connection.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've got an election coming up in November. It's not that far away. What do you think of? I didn't think much of him what did you now listening to him? I like him a lot. What did you think of JD Vance?
I haven't listened. I haven't listened to anything. I honestly I get
Are you
kind of
staying away from it?
I get kind of political on my ex just because of
Okay.
dumb stuff. Like if Trump says he's going to outlaw burning the flag, I'm going to call it out as a First Amendment violation. If if Waltz lies about his military record, I'm going to or misleads people about his military record, I'm going to call it out on on X. But I don't care about politicians. I don't. And when I say I don't care about them, I don't want any of them to die.
Right. We're not. Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind the FBI going through every single politician's bank accounts with a fine tooth comb. So I don't have any opinions about Vance. To me he was an odd pick. Like there's nothing really that stands out about him to me. I thought he was an odd pick. I thought there were better choices, but again, I don't really follow politics. I just assume whatever they say, they're lying, and I'll check their records. I'll see what they've done in the past, and that's where I go. Like people, it bothers me, like the sort of the religious iconography that goes along with Trump a lot of times. It bothers me. The mom and dad stuff about Harris and Waltz, like these are just human beings. Why are people putting them on pedestals? Yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, I don't know much. I know more about Waltz than I do Vance, and that's only because of Waltz's. I don't want to say stolen valor, because stolen valor is a very specific term that is a legal term and has a very definite threshold, none of which Tim Waltz meets, but he did lie and he did mislead, and people are bothered by that. And it's like, look, it's okay. Trump lies, Vance lies, Harris lies. They all lie. It's just the thing he happened to lie about. I know what I know that.
Yeah, there's an investment there.
So,
I understand. Hold on a second. We've got Eric from Hey Internet Eric here. It says, evening, gentlemen. And make sure to catch the replay to see what I missed. Welcome to the show, Dave. And Eric is a regular on this show, and we're always geeking out about something. Definitely leaning towards the geeking end on with Eric there. And he's been a friend of the show from like the first episode. I remember the days when I was on OBS trying to figure out how to live stream, because I used to record Zoom calls. It would be a Zoom call, and then I would upload it every Saturday. And I would start out, hello, welcome to the show, and that lasted about 5 episodes. And then, I ended up, just like talking the way that I normally talk. But then I saw somebody do a live stream. I'm like, wow, look at that overlay. I'm like amazed by anything, so like still looking at boobs to this day. Like, wow, look at that, that kind of thing. And they were like, well, you can do it. It's really easy. And Eric, for some reason, I think he was a friend of somebody else who was trying to help me get started, and he would just keep showing up in the comments. And so one day, I think I asked him to come on, and we ended up covering both of Rob Zombie's Halloween films. And so that was nice. Like 200. Yeah, it was like 230 episodes ago. And now Eric is like he's on here like every week, and we just hang out and talk about things.
I have very fond memories of Rob Zombie. His was it Dragula? Was that the name of the album?
Yeah.
That was a soundtrack for a very very specific point in my life. When I was a sniper, like me and some of my buddies used to rock out to that a lot.
He's still making. I saw him once in concert at Ozfest. He was good. He was good. It wasn't, because you want to see it live. Is it real? Are they really doing it, or is it just, some studio bullshit? It was good. It was good band. Yeah. Great movie.
So does American Werewolf, does that come from American Werewolf in London?
Yeah, I couldn't, I originally had this, and don't laugh. It was going to be called The Horror because I'm shit with names. And so all I could think of, I was just going to call it The Horror. That lasted like 3 episodes. And then, I was like, well, because I'll just make it about horror movies. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
Well,
the
I got to
horror.
change.
Okay.
Yeah, the
I thought it
horror.
was about sex workers.
Well, that would be a different episode.
I should have put my hearing aids in.
I was in Atlantic City one time, and yeah, it just things just spun out of control. But yeah, like the werewolf is my favorite movie monster, and I'm always jaded because we never get any decent werewolf films. I mean, that aren't comedies. That aren't comedy. But like that was what I grew up with. Like, started out. I grew up in South Jersey here, so there was a show on called Dr. Shock, and he was like your local Saturday horror guy, and he would show like a horror show in the middle of the afternoon. Before that, it would start at cartoons, and then professional wrestling, and then it was Dr. Shock. And then as I got older, Dr. Shock went away, and we had the old Black Belt Theater. Those old terrible, Bruce Lee. And those terrible kung fu movies. And I loved them. It was like religion. I didn't go to church, but every Saturday I was there watching Black Belt Theater. So, it turned into one of those things. But, those have been, the sort of consistent geek things along with the sci-fi and the, the books. And I don't know if I didn't mention this on the stream. This was what we talked about it before we went on. Watching the Team House, I ended up buying my first fucking manga. Junji Ito, and they're just so weird. Have you read these, or were they Jack's?
I not. Jack is very much the manga. Yeah, guy. I read a lot of lit RPG. So it's
a lot of what?
It's called lit, like literature, lit.
Right. Yeah.
RPG.
What does that mean?
So it's a fairly new genre, and the Russians were doing it kind of, I think, before most people. And so like
back in, write this down. Hold on.
Back in 2014, 2015, I read my first one, and it was Alter World. And basically, as somebody who's always been a fan of fantasy,
sure,
and a fan of role playing, lit RPG kind of filled this new niche where it's fantasy, but there's character progression in it. And the first ones were generally because somebody went into a virtual reality MMORPG and they were a character. Sometimes they would be stuck there. So if you think like Sword Art Online or Overlord or something like that, these were the books way back then.
Okay.
So you would see their progression, and some of them be really crunchy where you knew how much damage they were doing per hit, yada yada yada. But they would level up, they would get skills and stuff like that. And now the genre has really changed. So some of it is still sort of the isekai stuff, the portal stuff. Going to a new world, isekai or whatever it is. And then some of it is progression. So it's more like an Asian theme, sort of cultivation, but people have incorporated like systems taking over the earth, or there's one of my favorite of all time is called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is almost like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy premise beginning, where Earth is under contract, even though they don't know they're under contract by this intergalactic thing to be mined for all organic and minerals and stuff like that. And the only people who survive this are people who are outside, and then these dungeons open up, and they're basically in this interstellar reality show where they have wetware. Huh?
Where are you finding these?
Um, on Amazon.
Really? Okay,
And
so
if
if
you
I
have
look up
Kindle,
Lit
and,
RPG,
and,
if I
and if
look
you
up
have
Lit RPG, go
yeah,
ahead.
if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read these for free.
No shit.
But Dungeon Crawler Carl is a phenomenal one. He Who Fights with Monsters is a phenomenal one. Cradle series is a phenomenal one. Um, if you're more into like cyber, into more futuristic, is it Stormweaver? The Iron Prince is a phenomenal one. Um, I mean, there are a lot of good ones. I've read hundreds of them, and because I have a lot of TBIs, if I wait like 6 months and read it, it's a new book to me generally.
Oh no.
So, you know, so and some of them, and this is the beauty of Kindle Unlimited, I think, especially for independent authors, is I'm not going to spend $3.99 or $4.99 on 100 different books, hoping that the book is good
Sure.
if I don't know the author. With Kindle Unlimited, I can start a book, especially in this genre. I can start a book, and um, and if it's not good, I haven't wasted any money, and the author's still gotten some money through the number of pages I've read.
Okay.
So
I've got Alter World written down. I'm going to look it up, Lit RPG, and give it a whirl. Sometimes you grab onto something and then you piggyback onto the next thing. I do that a lot with bands, and
yeah,
music and that sort of thing. Oh, this is okay. Well, then we'll try this person, and this, that, and the other. And so, all right, thank you. That's cool.
So Alter World. Let me tell you, Alter World. It was the first one I read. I think it's one of the granddaddies. I don't know if there were other big books out there before this. It starts out, the first few books are really strong. And then I feel like he changed interpreters, or because he was writing in Russian. The last 2 to 3 books, especially the last couple, they're almost incomprehensible. Like I read them to finish the series, but I would definitely look at some of the more modern books. Like I said, you can't go wrong with Dungeon Crawler Carl, Who Fights with Monsters, or Cradle.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
I'll look it up. I'm always interested in a new rabbit hole.
yeah.
All
I
right.
mean,
Go ahead.
I am ready. I am ready for AI and Neuralink and everything to get to the point where I can just transfer my consciousness into an MMORPG and spend the rest of my days like swinging a
Isn't
sword.
that, yeah, isn't that like Warhammer or something like that? Or is that the premise for that or something like that? Or is it
Well,
Halo?
no,
I'm not a gamer. I'm not a gamer. So I
yeah,
feel that if I do that, then I'm just gonna quit my job and like
yeah,
drop out
yeah,
of life.
yeah. No, Warhammer is. I think there is a role playing element to it. I've never played Warhammer, but the one that most people talk about, 40K, is more of a strategic or tactical game, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know enough about it to talk about
Right. Yeah, I know nothing.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, fair enough.
So during the 70s and 80s, I mean, there were some great horror movies then, and that's your thing. Phantasm.
Oh God, not a fan. Not a.
Not a
It's
fan.
growing up. I would like. It's one of those things where it's like I grew up loving Arnold Schwarzenegger and Commando.
Yeah.
I own a copy of Commando on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Is Commando a great movie? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Is Commando a terrible movie? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's like when he jumps off the wheel of the plane, it just drops down like 1,000 feet and just comes charging out of the water. And you're like you watch it now and you're like, what the hell? All right, I was 15. So, like there are some movies that have held up. You're like, holy shit, like this is just, this is really held up. Like Terminator, like
Yeah.
James Cameron's original Terminator, where he's like riding in that Cadillac in the auto garage. And like I saw the behind the scenes where he talked about, he understood physicality because of the bodybuilding thing. And like, his eyes just moved, but like his head didn't. He looks like a shark just swimming in that Cadillac, like that still holds up. But like some of those horror movies, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Holy shit! But some of them are really great. Like if you watch the old Universals with Lugosi,
Yeah.
or like Lon Chaney, you're like, this is still fantastic. And
Yeah.
Halloween's right around the corner. I'll probably, as often as I can during the month of Halloween, try to catch one every night or something like that, as the schedule allows. Like, was Phantasm one of your faves?
When I was a kid, I haven't seen it in ages, but Phantasm, I loved Phantasm. But I loved a lot of bad movies when I was a kid. I mean, Beastmaster.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, Tanya Roberts in that. There were reasons.
Yeah. Beastmaster and Hawk the Slayer.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Yeah.
Well, The Sword and the Sorcerer.
The Sword and the Sorcerer. I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem was they got it perfect the first time because nothing beat Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
I don't think anything today beats Conan the Barbarian.
No.
You're just like that opening scene where his father's making the sword, and you're like, this is just. I mean, I owned a copy on VHS. I think I owned a bootleg, like he copied it when it played on TV, and then I bought my own copy on VHS, and then I bought my own copy on DVD. Now I own a copy on Blu-ray, and if whatever version they come out with next, I'll probably end up buying that too. And it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones, just passed away earlier this week. Thulsa Doom, the ultimate villain, man, the Riddle of Steel, those sorts of things. Yeah. Wow.
Are there any horror movies that? Oh, first off, do you believe in the supernatural?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any horror movies that that have ever like made you think, like reconsider your life, like think about plans to deal with it, things like that?
Plans to deal with it? I'm not
to deal with that kind of scenario. Has a horror movie ever influenced you in your actual life?
No, I don't think so. Well, yeah, maybe it has. If you talk about Blatty's The Exorcist, because I remember Blatty many years ago saying that The Exorcist is a Rorschach test. It depends on the type of person you are. If you're sort of a dark personality, then you're going to see pea soup flying and head spinning. If you're a person of faith, which I happen to be, then you're going to see all these men sort of rushing to save this little girl that they don't even know. Like two men end up like losing their lives to save the perfect stranger. This little 11-year-old girl. You've got it's a perfect film. Before you even get into the possession and whatever, you've got the priest who's lost his faith. You've got Max von Sydow that in the first 5 minutes of the movie figures out that he's going to die. You've got the detective trying to solve the murder. You've even got Carl, the manservant, who like stands the guard at the door, and changes her diapers because if you read the book, she's constantly messing or soiling herself, these sorts of things. So it's like these 4 other stories that are going on top of everything else. So yeah, I mean, it's just maybe that. I've seen a director recently. His name is Oz Perkins. He's actually Anthony Perkins, the guy who played the guy from Psycho, Norman Bates. His son is a film director. He's a horror film director now. And I have this uncanny feeling that somehow he has found a way to actually film evil. There's like this coldness that comes off the screen. And he just did this movie with Nicolas Cage called Long Legs. And it might be one of the greatest horror movies I've ever seen.
Really? I will tell you, I did not feel that. I was so looking forward to Long Legs, and it didn't hit for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried it. I brought people on this show to talk about his other film. Did you see The Black Coat's Daughter?
Is what?
The Black Coat's Daughter.
I haven't seen it.
Give it a shot. It's got that same cold feeling. That at least that I get. And I remember sitting in the theater and it was relatively full. And like the way it was shot, like the way you only see the bottom half of Cage's face for like the first half of the movie, where you see it's like a silhouette profile. I thought the shots were just incredible, and the vibe and the feeling. And I was like, oh, this is just. It wasn't what I was seeing so much as what I wasn't seeing.
Yeah,
That sort of worked.
So for me, I agree with you about the cinematography, and I think that there were some very brilliant moments in the movie. For me, it felt as though there were sort of 2 or 3 different ideas going on that weren't quite brought together in a super cohesive fashion. Because I went in really, really wanting to like it. Because I had just I don't know, a few months ago, I had seen a New Zealand horror film.
Okay.
I think it was from New Zealand. It was phenomenal.
Okay.
Low budget, so good.
Okay.
And so I just really wanted to like Longlegs, and I just left feeling as though it didn't quite gel.
Here's what I walked out thinking. I'm not sure what I just saw.
Yeah.
I remember walking out of it, and I didn't do a video on it or a review or anything like that. I don't even think I put a review up on like Letterboxd. What I have done is I just ordered the Blu-ray because it's about to drop next week, and I'm going to watch it again. And I'm going to see if I can put some, because it was just like there was a lot of sensory stuff going on.
Right. Right.
And I was, I couldn't quite process it all. There was a lot. There was a lot happening. And so I'm going to catch it again and then try to formulate an opinion.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, have you ever seen that movie Hereditary?
I'm not sure.
If you get a chance.
Check out Hereditary.
I'll DM you a couple titles that I might recommend.
So you liked The Exorcist. How did you feel that the Pope's Exorcist held up? I know it's a completely different movie, but did you enjoy it coming as a person of faith and knowing that the guy, even if the story is somewhat embellished or whatever, but the guy it's based on is real?
Oh yeah. It was fun. It was a fun movie, and I'm a big Russell Crowe fan. Master and Commander and Cinderella Man and Gladiator. I think Master and Commander is his best film, but I think that what happens now in horror is that religious horror has sort of flipped along with everything else. Everything else is flipped, where there is no good versus evil anymore. It's just all evil. And so there's no counterbalancing force of good. The protagonist, and I've seen a few movies like this. They did that Sydney Sweeney Nun movie. And then there was they did that prequel to The Omen. And like the character just has to get more and more feral in order to survive. She doesn't combat evil with good or anything like that. The church is always the bad guy. Lord knows in real life the church has its faults.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I liked about the Pope's Exorcist. There was actually, a protagonist. That's a hero. I remember about 20 years ago, not a friend, but this man I know, is a Marine. And he was lamenting about 20 years ago that in films and in television, there were no more actual heroes. Everybody was an anti-hero. So it's like this person doing, supposedly they're doing a bad, like the Tony Sopranos of the world. Yeah. Or the
Judge
that guy
Dredd.
from the guy from The Shield, Mackey, Detective Mackey. These guys who, they're really only up against somebody worse, but at the end of the day, they're awful. And so he was saying, we need to return to like actual heroism again. That's sorely missing. And I didn't pay much attention to him 20 years later, but now I think about it, I'm like, fuck, Jack was right, man. He knew what he was talking about. So when I see the Pope's Exorcist and I see an actual hero in a horror movie, I'm like, holy shit! Like I never see that anymore. Okay, yeah, I'm in, and they're gonna make another one, and I'm gonna be there to give them my money. So yeah, I mean, I don't need it, but I notice that it's not there.
Yeah.
Am I going to go see the first Omen? Sure. Am I going to see the Sydney Sweeney movie? Sure. Or whatever, whatever. But I see what's missing.
Yeah.
And I don't always feel that it's coincidental. Hollywood being no fan of,
heroes,
the church or heroes. Yeah, really. Being no fan of, that sort of thing. So when I see one that has it, yeah, sure. Shut up and take my money. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm trying to think. Shit. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you would like to get into? Geek, non-geek?
I mean, I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm more comfortable talking about movies and comics and games than I am about myself.
Sure.
I honestly, the idea that it's stories that brings people together. I think we see that with movies. When people can sit around and talk about a movie, a book. I think that tabletop gaming is a great way to do that because you're creating a story with other people. Yeah, man. And what's interesting is there are a lot of veterans, especially in the special operations community, for whatever reason, that geek out about things, that are nerds, that enjoy role-playing games or tabletops, whatever. There's generally on deployments, there's a theme movie that guys will watch over and over and over again to the point where everybody can quote it.
Example.
Team America was a big one. Napoleon Dynamite was a big one.
Okay.
Like Eat Your Food, Tina. It was just, would just come out at the weirdest times. You're stacking on a door and waiting for the breacher to like blow it. It's like Eat Your Food, Tina. It's everybody's like, like it's weird. But it's just, it's these things are all. But yeah, Team America and Napoleon Dynamite were big ones. What I'm trying to think of others. The other thing that's funny is because like a lot of the movies that you watch when you're overseas are pirated, right?
Sure. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
You go down to the Iraqi souk or the Afghan souk and you might see the latest Matrix movie with everybody's head moving and people making, commentary. But I remember like there were some movies like Slumdog Millionaire that people like a dude would put in, nobody knows what it is, but you're bored and, we're not going to game right. Like we're not going to play Halo or what right now or whatever. So everybody's like in the team room, puts in Slumdog Millionaire. And then with movies like that, when they're emotional, there's like this tacit agreement, unspoken agreement amongst guys. Nobody is going to look at anybody else.
I understand that. Yeah. You usually
Nobody's
don't want
going to look. Okay. That if your buddy's over there doing this, you are not turning your head. And then
you're in an odd position where you're actually watching Slumdog Millionaire with like 10 other guys.
Yeah.
That's an unusual position. You're usually watching it with your girl, your wife, something like that. You're in a unique position there. Okay,
yeah.
So there should be some ground rules, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh no, they're not rules you ever need to like discuss. and it never comes up. It's not going to be like, oh, motherfucker, you were crying during Slumdog, because everybody was,
Right.
and everybody knows they were. So yeah, it's really funny, like on deployments, one, how much entertainment is of whatever type. I mean, like during, World War I or World War II, like maybe they played cards together or whatever, like you have to find things to do in your downtime. And, you're often trying to vent and, depressurize. I mean, a lot of times, like you come off of, you come off a raid and you sit around and play Halo, or you sit around and play, whatever. But a lot of times you're watching movies and, some of those movies, like when you think of like the soundtrack to Vietnam, right? You think Fortunate Son, and, like there are certain songs, I know, at least for me, that when I hear it, I think of Vietnam, and because of the movies that I've seen about Vietnam. But I don't know if there are certainly songs that remind me of like deployments, like Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, stuff like that.
Sure.
But more than anything, I feel like movies a lot of times defined each deployment.
I think that storytelling fosters community.
Yeah.
If you go back to people sitting around fires,
Yeah.
telling the old myths, Native Americans or, whoever, the Greeks or whoever, just sitting around fires, telling the old mythologies and, telling it to their, to their children, and, maybe they grow up and tell it to their kids and that sort of thing. I think it sort of builds cohesiveness. I'm not exactly sure if that was the original idea, but that seems to be one of the purposes that it served. Maybe it's through the lens of entertainment. You're almost sort of watching a movie. You're almost sort of being tricked into sitting around. Hey, let's watch this movie together. Or hey, let's go to the movies. Or hey, we're gonna pop this in and let's do that. And you have those memories in the same way that all of us do, in various locations or in various places.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, I think movies and, movies, sitting under the umbrella of storytelling, I think that's, what they're supposed to do.
I think it's also, particularly for men. And again, like, I'm not going to say that there are not, like female, like movie nerds, because there absolutely are. Just like there are female sports fans. But I think it just kind of plays to the difference in how men and women communicate, in the sense of, if women meet other women that they don't know, they build bonds in very different ways, I think, than men do. Men will often either talk about sports, which I've never been a sports fan, so I'm not able to talk about somebody's, batting average or or yardage, or the Bears. Yeah. But they'll do it through sports. They'll do it through movies. They'll do it through some sort of shared experience that they didn't,
Sure.
Whereas women can, a lot of times, I think they're sort of getting to know you talk tends to be a lot more personal, where dudes, like, when we're sniffing guys out, we're looking, for these, like, if a guy likes the Beastmaster, I know we're going to find common ground. I don't care what his politics are. I don't care, whatever else, we're going to find common ground.
Yeah. Caddyshack.
Yeah. Caddyshack. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Those old Rodney Dangerfield movies were just classics. Did you ever see Easy Money?
Oh yeah.
That's my favorite Rodney Dangerfield movie. His mother-in-law dies and wills him $10 million. And he's not even trying to get sober. He's just trying to hang on for a year.
Yeah.
And Joe Pesci's like his psycho friend. I mean, those Ferris Bueller, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, all of those old, Wrath of Khan. all of those old things. I mean, you can meet somebody and just, spat off a line, and see if that, makes the connection right there. And, there you go. The riddle of steel.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, 40, 50 years ago, and, something from Apocalypse Now, Charlie Don't Surf, these sorts of things, they just, I've had drunk guys come up to me in bar, Charlie doesn't surf. And I'm like, okay, man, and I'll spat off something back, this, that, or the other. But yeah, I mean, we've all had those experiences, and that's, that's the purpose that they serve. Maybe even at the highest level, maybe even at the highest level, that, one line from a movie 50 years ago can bring two complete strangers together for a conversation. A conversation. It may not be some lifelong thing, but for those, for that limited pocket of time, that connection lasts. So
I think so. I absolutely think so.
Hold on a second. Eric is saying Predator is very quotable. Yes, it is. Get to the chopper. Those sorts of things. Eric ain't got time to bleed. So there you go. Was there ever a better? Now that's a movie that, I don't know, the Commando holds up, although it does in a completely different way. But Predator, absolutely. You could just sit down and watch Predator right now, and you'll be like, "Holy shit, this movie's still fucking great." No problem. What's your opinion?
Go
ahead.
Say,
go ahead.
No, because I think you were going to ask something that I was about to sort of start talking about. But what were you going to say?
No. I had a completely different topic of film.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that, like, with movies like Commando and Predator, like, I can suspend disbelief, or suspend. Do you suspend belief or suspend disbelief? Because I think I say disbelief. Right?
Yeah.
So I can suspend disbelief when it comes to, like, the military tactics used and stuff like that. I can't do it for a movie that takes itself seriously. Like, if they're not using the weapons properly, if their tactics suck, I am the worst crybaby in the world. You do not want to watch a movie with me or a TV show that is supposed to be realistic and have the technical or tactical aspects not locked in. Like, it just.
Which movie, in your opinion, gets it the worst?
The worst?
The worst and then the best.
I mean, The Green Zone was fucking horrible.
Oh,
wait. Was it?
Okay. I wasn't even thinking about that one. Okay, well, yeah.
Wait, are you thinking of The Green Zone? Which was the one where Ewan McGregor was an EOD tech?
Oh, the Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker. That's the one. That is so bad. And all of my civilian friends were like, "You have got to see this movie. It's the greatest military movie ever made." And so I sat down and watched it with a couple of them, and the whole time I was losing my mind.
A friend of mine who was in the Army, he served over there. He said the only thing that movie got right was the cereal aisle.
Yeah, the cereal, like, that's the only scene in that movie that the cereal scene is 100% accurate. Everything else about it was just horrible. What did you have in mind? Because when I said I haven't even seen The Green Zone. I don't watch a lot of modern war stuff. Okay. But what were you thinking about something?
Oh no, I don't have any way to judge it. I mean, like, for me, like, Commando is ridiculous, but if I were to watch Black Hawk Down, I can't tell you if that's accurate.
No, Black Hawk Down was good. They in a lot of shows, it's, it might be how guys move tactically approaching a house. It might be how they hold their weapons. Sometimes it's small things that just drive me crazy. But for like large movies, like, one that got it worst was The Hurt Locker. Ones that got it the best. Oh, and also, like, the remake of the Marvel series Punisher was so fucking bad when it came to that stuff. And I don't, like, you can tell. Huh? Yeah.
Like, really?
I think he's a great Punisher.
Yeah.
I think I just you can tell that the people who wrote that show hate the Punisher.
Oh, really?
They
Okay.
yes, they the Punisher is not like modern leftists. I don't know about liberals, but leftists hate
I know they
Punisher.
hate the. Yeah, I know they
They
changed
hate
the
the Punisher.
symbol. They changed the symbol.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I
hate him.
remember that. Yeah.
And I felt as though the people who worked on that TV show hated him. And after such amazing choreography in Daredevil,
Hmm.
to I couldn't even finish the Punisher. I
Okay.
maybe watched the first season, maybe I'm not sure.
Okay.
Um, but and then the movies that get it the best. Um, I mean, Heat is the universal standard for getting movement to
I've
contact.
heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. That bank shootout scene, isn't that like taught or like they make the people
That
view it like in the military or something? I read somewhere there's one branch of the military that like they actually view that scene.
I think somebody mentioned that they used to show that to Marines.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how true that is, but it is a good scene. Um, I thought John Wick, the first John Wick,
Sure.
um, got a lot of things very, very right.
Okay.
Um, John Wick after the first one,
It becomes
um,
a fantasy.
like I loved the world building fantasy aspect of it, but the gunplay became a fantasy too. Like all the
Hmm.
fight sequences became. I for the life of me don't understand how John Wick 4 is reviewed so much higher than John Wick 1. But I love the world building that they did.
Sure.
Um,
Well, you got that whole scene where he's going up and down the stairs. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it when they were in Paris and they're fighting around the circle. And I'm laughing and I'm just like having a black like I'm not taking it seriously at
I think
all.
that's what
You
it
know?
became. You know,
Yeah.
I thought that the top down scene in the old hotel or whatever it was with the dragon fire or the dragon breath shotgun rounds was very innovative.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Wait,
know,
you thought it was ineffective or effective?
innovative. It
Oh
was it
yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was very very cool, very well thought out.
Well shot. Very well
Yes,
shot.
very well shot.
Yeah.
Um, and then what else has gotten it really right? Black Hawk Down was good. Battle Los Angeles.
I love that movie. I've got a
I
copy of
love.
that.
I cannot believe that movie doesn't have better ratings. I love I bought that movie. I love the shit out of
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I found a $2 copy in like a 7-Eleven in Jakarta. I was I'm like, what the
It
fuck is
is.
Battle
It
Los
is.
Angeles doing? Give me that thing.
It is such a great. Like they got the Marines, and not just the Marines, but they got like the small unit atmosphere, the
Hmm.
small unit relationships, the leadership. Like they got it so right, you know, in the terms people relate with each other, and I mean they just
I gotta
got it
watch that again
so right.
soon. I gotta watch that again soon.
It's such a
Yeah.
great movie, and
Yeah.
again,
Aaron
it
Eckhart.
doesn't
Aaron
have very
Eckhart.
good ratings, and I'm like,
No.
why does this
No.
movie not have great
No.
ratings?
It was like a 1 or 2 star movie. It was a 1 or 2 star
I
movie, and
can't
that was
believe.
that. Yeah. It was like after Eckhart had done The Dark Knight, his career sort of fizzled. It was weird. It was weird.
I don't
Um,
know.
what I was
Yeah.
going to ask, what's your opinion on westerns?
I mean, I love westerns.
Okay.
Yeah,
Same.
I love westerns. You know
Same.
that like they don't make many westerns anymore. You know, I remember when Silverado came out and it was supposed to be the
Sure.
rebirth. It was supposed to be the rebirth of the western.
Sure. It was a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great
Uh,
cast.
yeah,
Everybody was top notch. The villains. It was fun. It was sort of
yeah.
serious, but it was more fun than serious. The theme music really didn't allow for too much seriousness. Um, but I don't like. Somebody told me that every western is a morality tale. And so I don't know if that necessarily is true. I think by and large, there's some truth in there. But I think in the modern era, it hasn't caught on. Eastwood was keeping it alive for a while, and now the only person Taylor Sheridan, but the only person who's really doing it is Costner. Did you see the Horizon film?
I have not yet.
I loved it. I loved it. It was 3 hours long. It's 3 hours of like this 12-hour fever dream that he's having. I hope he gets to make all of it. I have no problem watching these ultra long movies. Some people don't have the attention span for it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Get a chance to watch it. Watch it. It's great.
One of the things I think with Westerns is, they are Westerns to me have a more mythical quality to them than say your standard like action movie. That I don't know what it is about Westerns, but during the age of the Westerns, there were great Westerns made, and there were a lot of just crappy Westerns made.
Sure.
I think that with fewer Westerns being made now, I think the ones that are made, and I say this, I haven't seen like The Hateful Eight, but a lot of the movies, a lot of the Westerns that are made now are just phenomenal. And maybe it's because people don't take, like, they have to be good, but obviously Unforgiven was epic.
Sure.
I mean, Unforgiven is one of the finest movies out there, I think. Yeah. And then the remake of the Seven Samurai,
Magnificent Seven.
Sure. Both the original and the remake. It's one of the few times that a remake is actually like a good movie.
Yeah, it was solid. It was solid. Most remakes suck. Yeah. Most remakes suck. That was what the cast was too good for it not to suck. For it not to be at least halfway decent. Like, you can't put Denzel and like Ethan Hawke and Vincent D'Onofrio and all those other people in there together and have it stink. They're all just too good together.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Seven Samurai though, because I think like samurais are like the precursor to the Western.
Sure.
I love samurai films. Like, I grew up watching those bad Chinese films, but as I got older, I started to watch samurai films and like the Kurosawa films. Or watching Mifune do where he played Musashi in that trilogy. Or the subversive stuff where like happened after the Second World War with like Masaki Kobayashi, and he started making these movies that was kind of condemning Bushido because Japan had like fucked up the whole world, including Japan. Like, they just had 2 bombs dropped on them, and they're like, well, maybe we ought to rethink this 1,000-year-old thing that we've been doing. Maybe we don't live in that world anymore, and we all almost died because of it. And they started making these other types of films like Harakiri or what was the other? Samurai Rebellion. They're so fucking good. I have a guy on here that he makes independent samurai films over in Tokyo, Toshi Asaka. And every once in a while, like, they go direct to Prime. You can't buy them in physical media, but they're on there on Prime. And they're like $3. It's like $3 to buy it. And I'm like so happy to buy his movies and like have him on to talk about it because he just loves it. And he's like, I make these movies. They're about 30 days. It costs me about $500 to $1,000. Wow. You don't need $400 million to make a good movie. Is it a Kurosawa movie? No. But are they good? Yeah. I'm like, I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, holy shit, this is really, like, I just asked him out of the blue, would you like to come on? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, well, I'm like, well, link me your film so I can, review the content. And I looked at him, I'm like, holy shit, like, this cost $4.99. I'm like, not only am I going to rent it, like, I remember I told him I rented it and I watched it, and then I paid like $7.99 to buy it, just digitally own it. And I'm like, I'm so happy to support you. Please just keep making these things. We need more stuff like this. It doesn't have to be some giant CGI blob for us to for us to, enjoy it. Hold on a second. We got a couple more comments here. We got Slasher Fred. What's happening, man? One of my favorite Army movies is Paths of Glory. It's more Kirk Douglas, is it? Because it showed you how cruel the military in those days exploit their soldiers by sending them out on a mission. Okay, I haven't seen that one. I think that's a Kubrick movie.
I don't think I've seen Paths of Glory either. I think that, going along that theme, I think that a movie that captures that exceptionally well is Soldier with Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Okay. I never saw that. People rave about it all the time. I've never seen it.
It is such an amazing movie, and obviously it's not about today's military, but it does focus on sort of like the expendable nature of a soldier.
Okay. All right. I'll have to take a look. You can find it. Like, I don't have cable TV. I just have streaming channels now. So you can find it. I'm sure I can find it and dig it up.
Paths of Glory. Yeah. I'll check that out.
No, I mean Soldier. Yeah. You'll check out Paths. I'll check out Soldier. Okay. Let's see. We got John Carpenter. He says John Carpenter's movie Assault on Precinct 13. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, that's like Rio Bravo, isn't it? Isn't it like he made Rio
it's
Bravo?
The Alamo. Again? It's the Alamo. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the remake of Assault on Precinct 13 was good too.
Yeah, with Lawrence Fishburne and
Ethan Hawke, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to say that it was based on the Alamo. I think, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that was phenomenal.
I never saw the original Alamo, the one with John Wayne. The modern remake is really good with Billy Bob Thornton as Davy Crockett.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh man, it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really, really. And Dennis Quaid is Sam Houston. Jason Patrick is Jim Bowie.
Jim Bowie.
It's Jim Bowie. I forget Patrick Wilson, who he plays the Colonel. I can't remember his last name though, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, watch it.
I think it's interesting, because we're talking about samurai and we're talking about westerns, and some of the westerns were based off like some of the samurai movies, and a lot of the samurai movies were influenced by early westerns.
Sure.
So it's because look at Yojimbo, for instance, and I always want to say Usagi Yojimbo because I love the comic series, which is Rabbit Bodyguard. But Yojimbo, it led to A Fistful of Dollars, I think, Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Christopher Walken.
Yeah. There was also one, I don't know, I thought with Josh Hartnett or somebody, where it was more of a kung fu take, but it was still kind of the same premise. But then
they did that with the 47 Ronin, and I think there was one with Keanu Reeves or something like that.
Yeah,
and it was like a Mortal Kombat style with like a fantasy kind of like a samurai flick or something like that. But that's another great classic, the 47 Ronin, Chushingura.
Yeah,
that's just especially. I own there's several old Japanese copies. I got the one I think from '62 with Mifune, where he's only he has a very small role. He's like the spearman. He just kind of comes in at the end, and then he realizes it's going down. He's like, "Shit, I'm gonna miss it!" And there's just this great scene. He's just carrying this gigantic spear, and he's running in the snow. He's like, "I don't want to miss this fight," That's a fantastic story. 13 Assassins. That's another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a great movie! Have you seen the remake, Takashi Miike's?
I'm not sure. So especially with kung fu and Japanese samurai stuff, I'll go through binges sometimes on a weekend where I'll watch 3 or 4 in a row, on Amazon, because Amazon has a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
And then they also do it on the what's that service that branches off of Amazon, the Freebie or whatever it is.
Oh, is it Freebie? Okay, yeah, I have it. I've never used it. It just sits on my TV.
So I'll binge movies, but again, when I talk about my TBIs in my memory, it's a real thing. So I won't remember the titles of the movies that I watch. I might remember I'll remember the movies or the scenes, but I won't remember the name. So yeah, I've but I've seen a lot of what's on Amazon with both the Japanese and the Chinese.
If you get a chance, check out that remake of 13 Assassins, or at least try to follow up on it. If you, I think it's 2009, something like that, because the old one's like 62 or something like that.
I
So yeah,
absolutely
13
will.
Assassins. Fantastic film. Fantastic. Any genres you don't like? I'll start.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily a fan of musicals.
Oh, I love the shit out of
the, huh?
I love the shit out of musicals.
I love the Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
But that's kind of about it. That's kind of about it.
Yeah.
My natural inclination at this point, like if I see a musical, I'm just, next.
No, I watch the hell out of musicals, and I mean, I love the classics like You Sing in the Rain, and Brigadoon, and Camelot, and The King and I. And then I love modern musicals, and they don't do them much anymore.
No,
I'm trying to think of. I love the hell out of musicals. If I weren't such a nerd already with and so out about Dungeons and Dragons and comic books, I'd be worried about the talk about musicals would be like throwing my man card out the window. But anybody who knows me knows I'm a big dork anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I love the hell out of musicals. And yeah, and the Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah, man, it's another film full of one-liners.
Top-notch movie. Yeah. So genres that I don't like. I don't really watch modern war movies. I've never seen the 13 or Lone Survivor or.
Oh, okay.
I don't like. I'll watch a movie like Starship Troopers. I'll watch but the chances that I go see a war movie are very slim, and even the ones for instance, Fury. I had no intention of watching Fury, and of course I watched it, and it was phenomenal. But I probably never would have watched it if somebody hadn't had insisted that I see it.
Tank movies are a specific genre of war movie that you don't see very often.
No.
I like tank movies. There's that one from Afghanistan, The Beast.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's from 1982 or so. It's like the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've just never seen it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I can't think of any other tank movies off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, Fury. There are a few. I got into a conversation with a friend of mine. She's that's another story, but yeah, she's a big fan of. She's a veteran. Her husband was a veteran. She's a widow, Gold Star widow, but she's a big fan of tank movies because I think her husband was in the tank brigades. I don't know how to I don't know what the terminology is for that. So, and she mentioned 4 or 5, and now I can only think of those 2. Trying to think. Oh, favorite film. It's easy for me. I go with Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
Yeah, I think that just released on the big screen after I forget 60 years or something like that, and I didn't get a chance to see it. And I was just, you're never going to see that on the big screen.
Yeah. So have you read Seven Pillars?
Got about halfway through it 2 times, and just for some reason ended up putting it down. It's still sitting on my nightstand in my bedroom in there. it's a hell of a story, and a lot of detail.
Yeah.
A lot. He was very meticulous. He was extremely meticulous with detail. The only thing, well, I would think of. I remember reading Patton's book, War as I Saw It, and again, it wasn't what you thought. It wasn't a blood and guts story. It was very, very detailed. One, two, three, A1, A2, that sort of thing. I was like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to. Still a hell of a story, but his was too. I mean, not an easy tale to tell, and
Yeah.
sort of tragic, with what ended up happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the motorcycle accident?
Well, the motorcycle accident, the way that he sort of changed after he got captured that time.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, they didn't know who they had. And his whole demeanor changed, and the way he sort of looked at things after that it wasn't the same. And I guess I mean, even the motor, what ended up happening where they end up screwing Faisal out of Syria. He wanted Damascus, and they end up giving him this new country called Iraq. We've got this other piece that we carved up for, because they had no intention of letting him have it. That had already been pre-decided, and he just didn't know. There's a really great film about that with Ralph Fiennes. O'Toole's first role, I think, was Lawrence, and Fiennes' first role was playing Lawrence.
Oh, interesting.
It's about what happens after in the negotiations. How he tries to help Faisal secure what he wants, and they're not successful.
Wait, Lawrence of Arabia was O'Toole's first movie?
That is it's easy. When you watch the film, it says introducing Peter O'Toole.
Interesting. That's fascinating. When
you watch Zulu. Movie. Yeah, when you watch Zulu with Michael Caine, he's introducing Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Like, how can that be?
Yeah.
How can that be? But for me, it's Lawrence.
So I would have to say that I don't really have a favorite movie. I will say, for watchability, probably the movie that I've watched more than any other movie is probably Galaxy Quest. I think.
God. Okay.
I think Galaxy Quest. Okay. I think Galaxy Quest is a perfect movie.
It's the Star Trek parody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman. Okay. I saw it once. I don't even remember. I might have had too much to drink that night, or something. It was a long time ago.
It's an all-star cast that just everybody nails it. It is the biggest fan service show. And I'm not a huge Star Trek nerd. Like, I like Star Trek. Yeah. But it is the biggest fan service show that shows love to fans. It's just a perfect movie. It really is well written, well directed. A really great. There's a documentary about it that is just phenomenal.
Okay.
But yeah, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie, but because I don't necessarily have a favorite, but mood wise, it's probably the movie I watch more than anything else. That and probably Serenity.
Oh, that's the one the film that followed Firefly, right?
Yes.
Missed the whole thing. I missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're very different. Serenity is sort of what Firefly kind of could have become had it gone more seasons. So they sort of reworked the characters a bit. It's not necessarily a continuation, more as it is what it is. Like, it's a standalone.
Okay.
So you can watch Serenity never having seen Firefly.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. Then,
Yeah.
all right, that'll probably encourage me to watch it a bit more.
Yeah.
Are you a Babylon 5 fan?
Um, I've watched it, but I haven't watched it like in depth.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll
Yeah.
have to. I got through to about season 4 because there's a service called Tubi, another app out there called Tubi.
Yep.
It's like Freebie and Pluto TV and all those things, and
Yep.
it was on there. And I just kept, wow, I'm like, this really isn't bad. Like you have to take the graphics for what they are at the
Sure.
time, but it's got a great story. And then something happened like at the beginning of the 4th season, and I just kind of fell off. I just kind of get back on there and finish it up.
Yeah, Tubi's
I
great.
heard the 5th season goes off the rails.
Yeah, Tubi's great for old movie or old TV shows.
Oh yeah,
Knight Rider's on there. Greatest American Hero. Like, I don't know. I'm looking for BJ and the Bear and Airwolf and.
Oh sure.
All the old stuff.
That was the one that bred the other offshoot, Sheriff Lobo.
Oh, right.
BJ and the Bear.
Yeah.
BJ and the Bear. He was the sheriff that was constantly on BJ's, trying to bust him, and then he ended up getting his own spinoff with Claude Akins. With Claude Akins as Sheriff Lobo. Yeah, I remember those shows growing up. Shit.
Yeah.
I remember coming home. I wasn't a Doctor Who fan. I'm still not a Doctor Who fan. I don't necessarily like campy things, or things. Yeah, especially a whole series. Like I could watch a campy movie. I can't watch an entire campy series. I've tried to watch Doctor Who, like wanting to like it, and I get like 3 or 4 episodes in, and I'm like, I can't take this. But what would happen was I would get home, and the local PBS affiliate would have Doctor Who, but they would have another show on there called Dark Shadows, which was it was a vampire show, like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on like my local PBS affiliate, and I was hooked on that show.
Yeah,
and, like. For whatever, I think I graduated high school, so I just stopped. Life changed, after high school, this, that, and the other, and I fell off of it. But Tubi has the entire it's like 1,200 episodes. Tubi has all 1,200 episodes on there, and it's dark. And I'm just like, holy shit, this guy Barnabas Collins is a fucking evil bastard. Holy shit! Like I had no idea. Just catching it like in the middle, I'm like, what's this? Oh shit, this is good. I'll come back tomorrow. For like 2 years. But it went on for like 6 years, and I had no idea. So now I come back to it, and it's on there, and it's free. It's free. So the price is right. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
Why the hell not?
Yeah, I watched. I don't know if it was the second Doctor. Or I don't know, because Doctor Who's been on for a long time.
Yeah. Maybe
it was the third or fourth. I don't know. But I remember you watching Doctor Who when I'd come home from school. I used to like that. But then I fell out of it, and now it feels like a lot to try to catch up on it.
I tried to watch the one with Chris Eccleston. I think he was like the 6th Doctor or something like that. And I like Eccleston or however you pronounce his name. I like that guy as an actor. But I couldn't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. It's too campy. So it's not meant to be. All right. Is there any, maybe we should start to wrap this up a little bit.
Sure.
Is there anything that you have, not gotten to, discuss, or, do you want to dive out of a window or something? Like, get me out of here, that kind of thing.
No,
all right.
Been fun.
All right. Same here, man. Same here. I'm glad that we had a chance to do this. Plug something. Tell us what's coming up on the Team House. We're going to put the link to the channel in the description.
So tomorrow on the Team House, we have Uriah Pop, who was a medic with an Army Special Mission Unit. And for your viewers who may not know much about the military, a Special Mission Unit is essentially a high-level unit of the military that does a lot of really cool shit, and they don't generally want to provide the names of what those units are. So he's a really cool dude. He's friends of friends, and yeah. And then we have, I'm not sure who we have next week, but we're rapidly approaching our 300th episode. And for our 300th episode, we're going to do like a 4-hour Dungeons and Dragons.
Are you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So wait, which episode is this? Do you know the number off the top of your head?
I can tell you. I'll have to look it up real quick. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Because now you're doing like I've noticed you do like 2 a week now.
We've not always. We do every Friday live at 8 p.m. Right. And then usually once or twice a month we'll do a weekday show, another show. Okay. So
like you've had a couple of I guess as shit has kicked off, in Israel or something like that. You've had a couple of impromptus, hey, let's break it down kind of thing.
So we have another show on our channel now. Our good friends Jason Lyons and Andrew Milburn have their own show on our channel called Eyes On.
Right.
And okay. Where Jack and I do more biographical things. Okay. They're more focused on current events.
Okay. Fair enough.
So so they bring a whole new feel to the show. They're both awesome guys. They'll generally have on guests that are area experts. So tomorrow is episode 299.
Oh, geez. So you're right. So it's going to happen next week. The big D&D.
Yeah.
So is it just who's going to be on their plane? This is going to be you and Jack, or
it's me and Jack and our friend Lana, who is an Army veteran, and I think we have 1 or 2 other people. I can't remember who they are now.
Okay, I'll definitely be tuning in for that one. That'll be a lot of fun. Okay, yeah, good deal. Well, my thanks to Dave Parke for stopping in and geeking out a little bit and just shooting the shit, man. Thank you. I appreciate you. Maybe if you like, you could come back sometime and, sure. Maybe the latter part of the year or something like that. We'll see what's happening around then and shoot the shit some more. The shit never ends.
Yeah, I'm always down to geek out about stuff. So
sounds real. Well, this channel, so far as I know, this channel isn't going anywhere. So we'll be here. All right, man. Thank you very much. My thanks to everybody in the chat and the people who turned out for this one. Thank you very much. We will see you all in the next video. All right, everyone. I think we'll be back next week. I'm trying to set up more interviews. So I'm trying to get, I think, Father Calvin Robinson on, who just had to leave the UK for everything that's going on over there. I'm going to... It feels a little silly, which is why I started opening up more interviews with everything that's going in the world to consistently be focusing on just fun stuff, although you do need those things. I have this platform, so maybe I can use it for, other purposes as well. So I hope to be continuing with more interviews in the immediate future. So again, we'll see you all in the next video. Take care. God bless you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Stick around for a second, Dave, please. Yep.